and the meeting is now open for sharing testimonies of healing through Christian Science. Jeremy.
I am very grateful for how Christian Science is always applicable and practical. Recently, we have started adding Hindi, Punjabi, and Urdu translations to the website. The Hindi language is written and read left to right like English, so that work went fine. Punjabi and Urdu, however, are right to left languages, and that was quite a different thing for me, both in understanding how it worked and the technical issues for getting it ready for videos and websites. And it ends up, if you just align the text to the right, the symbols go from last to first. And a website that's supposed to be an authority in web development gave me a method, and everything looked promising, except the numbers were back to front. So 2019 became 9,102. So late last Thursday, after many days of trying different methods, I finally just said to God, if this is supposed to work, please show me the way, because I am not getting it. I then went to sleep. When I woke that next morning, the answer was there, and it was as though I was already thinking of it the moment I woke up. I got right up and I tried it, and it worked. And what a beautiful moment that was. I thank God not only for that blessing, but also because it allowed me to feel ready to pick up my kids last Friday without being preoccupied with it all weekend. I'm so grateful for all the ways that God is there for me constantly. Every part of this church serves to not only make me feel close to God, but also with every lesson, service, discussion, and call to the practitioner, I get this feeling that I am more me than I was before. I'm so grateful for Christian Science and this church. It is wonderful to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Shahidat from Maryland, go ahead.
Good evening. I'd like to express my gratitude tonight for a healing I experienced last week. Last Wednesday, I woke up in the early morning hours with a persistent pain in my upper back between my shoulder blades. After doing my morning lesson, the pain lessened considerably, and I forgot about it for the bulk of the day. In the evening, however, I bent over to get something from a lower dresser and was bowled over with so much pain from my back that I could barely reach the dresser. I texted my practitioner for help, even though it's just a few hours before our evening service. She said she'd work, and she also asked me to see this clearly as an attempt to interfere with my participation in the Wednesday night testimonial service. Additionally, she reminded me to remain focused on my constant spiritual perfection. I was able to support the Wednesday service as usual, and when I woke up on Thursday morning, the pain was greatly reduced and completely gone by Thursday afternoon. Now, I have learned in this church that every trial is an opportunity to learn more about God. It's not just about reaching a destination or alleviating the immediate physical discomfort, but appreciating the growth to be had in the journey, which makes us better scientists. In this case, after I texted the practitioner, I started to pray for myself. The thought that God was the only cause and creator came to me very clearly. As I pondered that statement and how it applied, I recall that one of the things that I did that morning when I woke up in distress was to think back on what I could have possibly done to cause the discomfort. What I then realized was this line of thinking, in effect, only serves to limit God's omnipotence. If God good was all, then nothing could be made that was not created by God. Therefore, this so-called pain could not possibly be real. I could not have slept wrong or done anything to cause the supposed distress. It was an important lesson for me to be always ready with the truth, no matter what may seem to be going on with the body. I am so very grateful for the excellent clear teaching of how to apply Christian Science, as taught here at Plainfield, and I'm also very grateful for the always ready practitioner help. Thank you.
Thank you. Luann from New York, go ahead.
Thank you. The past few weeks, I found myself once again seeing every problem that comes my way from a human standpoint. I got so caught up with it all and began battling on the terms set forth by the problem. By then, the problem seemed so big, I lost sight of the solution. Exhausted, depressed, and ready to give up, at the point of save or I perish, after weeks of battling sub-zero temperatures, heavy snowfall, a flooded shop due to heavy rain, and a clay supply that was on back order, called my practitioner for help. He led me to pray and to study the 23rd Psalm. I began at once. When I got to the verse which He maketh me to lie down in green pastures, beside the still waters, I thought, what am I doing? God did not create me to strive in vain, running around trying to solve every situation out of pride and human will. He created me to trust in Him, to rest in His care, to listen for that still small voice to guide my path, and to glorify Him in all that I say and do, just as my practitioner had told me many times. Instead of thinking these are all just natural problems that come with living in northern New York State, I should have been holding in thought that God is ever present and perfection is everywhere and in all things. Once I began seeing things as they truly are and trusting in God's government of events, things began to turn around. The weather stilled, the flooded shop was taken care of, and my clay order arrived. But while I was waiting for my clay, I found another supplier that was cheaper. I also discovered there was a supplier just 3 hours away where I could pick up the clay I needed for the shop, avoiding the high cost of shipping. Such a wonderful blessing and proof of God's care. I am so grateful to God for this lesson and for the help of my practitioner. By loving mercy, I was kept from being swallowed up by discouragement. Instead, my heart was strengthened and renewed. I am so grateful for Christian Science and all that Mary Baker Eddy has done to bring this light into the world. Thank you.
Thank you. Elizabeth from Georgia, go ahead.
Good evening. Thank you, Florence, for your readings tonight. I was asking God today what I could share as an offering tonight. And just before the service, I got a call from my oldest son who's at college. He wanted to talk. He had mentioned in the last week a sense of being down and other people who he knows feeling the same way. I told him that this is a very prevalent world thought, but that he doesn't have to accept it, and that no one has to accept this sense of depression because God is the creator of all, and it's not part of God's creation. And he said this before, that he doesn't believe in religion and God. And I said, well, you don't have to believe in religion to believe in God. I asked him, does he believe and feel love, joy, goodness, intelligence, life? And he said, yes. And I said, well, that is what God is. And he thought about it, and he said, I really like that idea. And I told him that when he starts feeling low, to start thinking about what he's grateful for, even if it's just a little thing, and that's an antidote to feeling this kind of depression. I'm grateful that he reached out to me. He said he wanted me to call him after the service as well. And Florence, you read one of my favorite sentences in Miscellaneous Writings. I think it's Miscellaneous Writings, but that is, God's law reaches and destroys evil by the virtue of the allness of God. I think that's a very powerful statement. Thank you.
Thank you. Linda.
Thank you very much for the readings tonight and the music. I would like to express my gratitude for the many ways that I am witnessing God work in all our lives. Recently, during a call with my Plainfield practitioner, I was given instruction about purifying the need to cleanse, purge thought of materialism especially after the Christmas holidays. And to work with this for the world. What followed, though, was quite profound. One of my family members that day began to purge areas in our house which had become quite cluttered with junk and things. And as I was putting this testimony together, I realized really that anyone who knows they have to tackle big messes, that you really almost have to purge thought of the resistance, the fear, the avoidance, the overwhelm, whatever. You can name the list. And I know they were all operating in our house, but just like the previous testifier said, God's allness, just that treatment went right through all that, cut right through it. And I know it was the prayers of the practitioner because, first of all, this person was not inclined to do this normally. It was unplanned, and I hadn't even mentioned the need of this to be done to her. During this time, many ideas came to improve the space. It just kept flowing and moving forward. It was also a great lesson in expecting good. It's so important, I realized, how to be very mindful of the messages that are given to us and to listen and really cherish and embrace them, because we have no idea what these angel thoughts are really trying to take, where they're trying to take us and help us. And looking back now and seeing what had changed in this house, it's really quite a miracle. And there are several areas now in our home that are beautiful, orderly, and useful, and we got rid of a lot of unnecessary things. This was such an example of how this prayerful support goes out and reaches all areas of our lives. And I'm so grateful to have been touched by this in my home. I'm very grateful for this science that Mrs. Eddy sacrificed to give us, Christ Jesus, our way shower, and this beautiful little church that knows how to teach and live it. Thank you.
Thank you. Luba from Ohio, go ahead.
Good evening. I'm so grateful for the positive change in my life since coming to Plainfield and getting a truer understanding of Christian Science. Also, the loving dedication, patience, and influence of my practitioner. It's been such a great blessing. I have learned also how practical Christian Science is in my daily life. Recently, right before we got the record-setting cold temperatures, something urged me to get my car battery checked, which I did, and I was told that I definitely needed to replace the battery. The person there told me of a reputable place to have this done, which I did that same day. I was so grateful for that voice of God within, which is always there. I'm so grateful for all the good that God has been providing and continues to provide. I'm grateful to Christian Science, this church, and to my practitioner. Thank you for tonight's reading, and I'm very happy to be here this evening.
Thank you. Barbara or Ken from Pennsylvania, go ahead.
Hi. I've been especially grateful recently for two statements of Mrs. Eddy's, both from Science and Health. The first one is, quote, "What we most need is a prayer of fervent desire for growth in grace, expressed in patience, meekness, love, and good deeds," unquote. The second is, quote, "The spiritual sense of truth must be gained before truth can be understood. This sense is assimilated only as we are honest, unselfish, loving, and meek. In the soil of an honest and good heart, the seed must be sown, else it beareth not much fruit, for the swinish element in human nature uproots it," unquote. It's so important, as these statements make clear, to develop and practice these Christian qualities. One of the ways this is becoming practical in my experience is that I'm becoming more aware of my tone of voice and from that, what I'm thinking or feeling, what needs correcting. For example, the difference between "what are you doing?" or "what are you doing?" where the latter might denote some level of "thou fool." Thankfully, this week's helpful daily watch, which can be found on the carousel, is on that very subject. I'm increasingly grateful to God for Science and Health and Mrs. Eddy, through which it came, and certainly for the Plainfield Church members and supporters, now and in the past, and the Plainfield practitioner, for all they are doing and have done to help wake us up to what science requires of us. I was not raised in a Christian home and didn't seem for many, many years to recognize the degree of hard-heartedness I had learned or the need to address it. Isn't it wonderful, though, that the Good Shepherd seeks out the lost sheep and never gives up on us?
Thank you. Michael from California, go ahead.
Thank you for the readings. A few weeks ago, I was dealing with a difficult situation, and I felt like I was overcome with anxiety and fear about the outcome of this difficult situation I've been facing. And I was able to contact a Plainfield practitioner, and through discussing some of the situation and her giving me some verses to think about regarding God's care and protection, and also telling me in a very direct way that now is the time to think Christian Science and live it, not just theorize about it. And I really it was a very important situation or lesson for me to learn in terms of keeping my thought on the right side, on the spiritual side. And also, I think a few weeks ago, somebody mentioned an article about faith in God. And one important idea I learned from that was that I can't be jumping from one foot to the other, wondering what matter is going to do next, what matter is going to say next, what the next reaction or action might come from with matter. It can't be the determining factor in how I think or how I feel. And so really just making another God, a false God. And so I was able to become clear with what I needed to understand, and I feel like I've overcome much of the anxiety and fear that I was dealing with. And I just want to express gratitude for the Plainfield Christian Science Church Independent, for the practitioners' constant support, and just all the blessings that have come from participating in this church. Thank you.
Thank you. Edith from California, go ahead.
Thank you. I would like to express my gratitude. It is just so wonderful to learn about Christian Science. I'm so grateful for the Plainfield Church for every recording. Last Monday was a very challenging day for me. I had to face a very difficult situation where I had to see myself, and I had to see many things that I had to change within me that I was not aware of before. And I just felt really rotten. And I came home on Monday, and I was very discouraged, and I said, I need something good to listen to. So I went to the YouTube channel, and the first thing that popped up was the round table from Sunday. What a blessing that was. That was exactly what I needed to hear. It helped me so much. I feel better. I know that I can do this because of the grace of God. And I know that I can do this because there's so much support available through this church. And for everything that they make available, it's just so wonderful. I feel ready. Right after I listened to that recording, the round table from Sunday, I just feel ready. I'm ready to get out, and I have been since. And I feel like a little girl with a new toy. I'm just so excited and ready to go and play. I can do this. And I thank you all for everyone that participated on Sunday Roundtable, for everything that you shared. I thank you so much. And thank you again. Good night.
Thank you. Chardell.
Good evening, and thank you for our music and the wonderful readings. I wish to offer gratitude for all the teaching here at Plainfield Christian Science Church Independent. Sometimes you can't measure all the things you have learned, but then suddenly your life is different and you know that you are changed. It was suggested at various times to read our basic books, the Bible, Science and Health with Key to the Scriptures, and prose works in chronological order, as I have mentioned before. I have been doing this, and although it seems to be slow going sometimes, I noticed that when I started in the second reading of Science and Health, something had happened. The meaning of a lot of the text was clearer and more deeply understood. I can't put into words the feeling I had, as if the light was beginning to dawn. This has been something that I pray about on a daily basis, asking God for understanding. I know now that we are meant to comprehend all that God has brought to light, and I am very grateful. Thank you.
Thank you. Lil.
Thank you for those wonderful readings and the beautiful music. I'm so grateful for our website and all it offers. Included are many wonderful articles that are continually added to the carousel. One on the carousel right now, as was referred to before, is especially helpful to me, called The Art of Being Glad by Bicknell Young. I've been getting lots of strong practitioner help for keeping my joy and thinking out, not just about me. In the article, a very helpful statement says, quote, "Someone has said that unhappiness is the hunger to get happiness, while happiness is the hunger to give." This really meant a lot to me. And it means to reach out always. It's about not getting, but giving. And this has been such a blessing to me, and I'm really looking forward to studying it more. I'm just grateful for Mrs. Eddy, for Christian Science, this wonderful way of life, for God and His love, for Christ Jesus, and for practitioner. Thank you.
Thank you. Gary.
It's good to often look back and see how God has guided me through my life and some of the incredible things that He's done, many totally unexpected. I was thinking recently about how I got here. As a high school student in the West Coast, I was drawn to go to school in Boston. I'd never been there. It seemed like a million miles from any place I had ever known. And yet, the fact that Mrs. Eddy established Christian Science and established the first church of Christian Science in Boston seemed to have a huge attraction to me. And so, even though everybody in my family thought I was crazy, and it was a very wrenching thing to do, I packed up my bags and traveled all the way across the country to go to college. And it turned out very clearly, I didn't know why, but it was the right thing to do. And not for the reason that I thought. Because it was there that I met and married my wife, who happened to be from Plainfield, New Jersey, and a member of this church, and who introduced me to a Christian Science practitioner that was different from any practitioner I had ever met. She was tough, she was strong, and she healed, and she was an inspiration. And she loved Mary Baker Eddy, and she loved Christian Science. And those were the most important things in her life. Well, even though I was, again, seemed like millions of miles away from anything I'd ever known, I felt like I had come home. And we have stayed here, and we have worked and grown and never looked back. And the rest is history. And it's a wonderful history. I'm so grateful to have learned to let God guide me. And I'm so grateful to see what God has done, not only in my life, but in the lives of everyone here. It's beyond description. But I'm so grateful for what Mary Baker Eddy gave us, because it was the example of that practitioner that taught me to love and respect Mary Baker Eddy, and that taught me more about this science than I have learned in any other way. So, anyway, it's wonderful to be here tonight with you all. And thank you very much for those fine readings tonight.
Thank you. Day from Georgia, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm grateful for the article entitled Gratitude by Herbert Eustace, found on our website Carousel, and for learning through the teachings in this church that to be grateful is to acknowledge the allness of God, which protects and provides for all of his children. Through daily practice, I'm learning that whenever I'm feeling bad, I'm not taking the time or allowing myself to be grateful and to give thanks to God. I'm finding that gratitude and joy go hand in hand. And when I'm able to find my way back to thanking God for even the smallest thing I can think of, any burden I'm feeling begins to lift until my joy returns. I'm so grateful for this learning, which is making me more accountable for my feelings and more obedient to God. Thank you so much for tonight's readings and for all the testimonies given so far. I'm very grateful for all that I'm learning in this church and to be here tonight.
Thank you. Debbie from Illinois, go ahead.
Good evening. I'm very grateful for tonight's readings and also for each and every testimony that's been presented this evening. Being involved with the Plainfield Church, I've learned persistence. Persistence in not allowing mortal mind and error to take control. I'm very grateful to know that God truly is all in all, and little by little, as I allow him to, he will unpeel every layer of mortal mind and material thoughts that try to take control in my life. I'm truly grateful for all the support in Plainfield, all the love that is shared. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Florence from Georgia, go ahead.
Thank you. This is a testimony from Toronto. Years ago, while working at a Christian Science nursing facility, nurses would give me articles to photocopy, and they would suggest that I copy one for myself. As I was reading one of those articles, it referred to another article which I did not have. So I began searching the internet, hoping to find the article. And Plainfield CS website came up in the search as a suggestion, and I found the article on the website. That's how I found Plainfield. A little over a year ago, I was searching for a CS article that was referenced in another article I was reading and found it on this church's website. I began exploring the site and soon discovered that it had a wealth of information on Christian Science, articles by early workers, online services, weekly Bible lessons, testimony meetings, a forum, and practitioners. At that time, I was no longer attending my branch church. I found the article so clear and precise. I began following the live services, reading and listening to recordings, and I set up my alarm for each live service and followed them. I continued to read, listen, and study. I found the messages so timely, and quite often the testimonies provided answers to questions I had or solutions to issues I was facing. During the live sessions, there is a feeling of love, comfort, and oneness. I looked forward to these sessions as I was gaining a better understanding of science and health and the legacy Mrs. Eddy gave us. After some prayerful work, I was led to contact one of the practitioners on the website and discuss some challenges I was experiencing at the time. We worked together, and not very long thereafter, one by one, I overcame those challenges, plus others I never mentioned to the practitioner during our work. Thanks for the wonderful work you are doing at Plainfield Church Independent. Grateful for all the workers who make this possible. And tonight I'd like to give my gratitude for my journey here to Plainfield. Because in the practice I hear others who seem to be where I used to be, with this false sense of unworthiness. It is here that I came to understand truly what God is, what He knows about me, and found my worth in Him. And it makes me cherish it and love the grace and the love that He draws all of us if we seek Him. What I have learned here continues to change every area of my life, from those dark days to brighter ones. I have gained a higher understanding of the Scriptures, which has allowed more practical use of the examples in those Bible stories to guide my own life. I am forever grateful for Mrs. Eddy's sacrifices, the courage she had to stand alone, given what was so contrary to what was believed then. So grateful for all the testimonies and all the pure thinking that supported the service and those that support this holy mission. Very grateful to be here tonight.
Thank you. Mary.
Okay, I have a few emails this evening. Virginia, a short message for the moment. Thank you for the clear messages that come through all the Bible studies and the round table. I am listening to the one entitled The First and Great Commandment. How powerful. It has been an incredible help to me. I am so grateful for this church. The contributions from all members it is completely unsurpassed any source of guidance I have found in the world today. And a testimony from England. I'd like to thank you so much for the Bible study and the roundtable sessions of the weekend just gone. I look forward to those each week and try to listen to them live if I can. In researching on the web today, I came across a site for independent Christian scientists, which lists loads of books I'd never heard of. Just amazing that these accounts of Mrs. Eddy's life are being kept secret from people trying to study Christian Science. I am really so grateful for all that I am learning, and I'm trying to spend as much time as possible in reading and studying. I also try to be thankful as much as possible during the day. I'm especially grateful for my mother's new home, which is so special and exactly right for her. It is such a huge blessing and has given her a real new lease on life, for which I am deeply grateful. It's so lovely to see her keen to choose new items for her home and keen to get out and about, now that she is near to shops and buses and no longer has a garden to worry about. God is so good to meet our needs abundantly. I am most grateful for finding Plainfield Church and all it is teaching me. With much love. And Oklahoma. I am grateful for a quick healing of a very painful knee. I awoke from a late afternoon nap to find my left knee was stiff and sore. As I tried to move my knee and leg to get comfortable, I felt excruciating pain. I thought back on my day and found nothing untoward that had happened in any sense, and I was reminded from Science and Health that there is no life, truth, intelligence, or substance in matter. Yet as I tried to adjust my foot and leg, the pain increased, and I went into shock where I was profusely sweating with teeth chattering, etc. I tried to stand up but could put no weight on my leg. So I decided I needed help from a practitioner and called. She said she would start to help me immediately and for me to read and recite the 91st Psalm and the 23rd Psalm and to listen when I could to Bignell Young's article Oneness. The pain was intense, so I kept repeating, "There is no pain in truth and no truth in pain" by Mrs. Eddy, and listened and read what I was assigned. After about 2 hours, I felt better. I managed to get up on my right leg and lean over to pull a chair closer to me. I was able to use the chair to get to the bathroom and get ready for bed. I continued to pray the scientific statement of being and to know the truth about myself. I was able to sleep for several hours, and when I woke up, my knee felt sore, but I was able to touch it, flex, and stand. I was able to comfortably put weight on my foot. I called the practitioner to continue treatment for one more day, and by the next day, I was completely well. I'm so grateful for this healing. I appreciate all of Mary Baker Eddy's works and for this church and all that I'm learning here. Thank you for those beautiful readings tonight on grace. You read partly from 1 Corinthians, "By the grace of God, I am what I am." And that full quote is from Paul, where he says, "For I am the least of the apostles, that am not meet to be called an apostle, because I persecuted the church of God. But by the grace of God, I am what I am, and his grace, which was bestowed upon me, was not in vain. But I labored more abundantly than they all, yet not I, but the grace of God, which was with me." I can hardly read that without feeling like I'm going to cry. It is so beautiful to think about what Paul said. He knew he was nothing. He had persecuted worse than nothing, really. He had persecuted the Christians. And yet, by God's grace and by the fact that he worked hard at it, it wasn't easy to get over that past. But by God's dear grace, look what he did. Look what he has given us. It is truly something to be so grateful for, and to see God's grace in action. I had not been at all familiar with those two beautiful verses, but one evening a few of us had gone to a movie called The Express, And it started out about a little boy living in poverty. I believe it was in Pennsylvania. And it seemed that his grandfather was taking care of him. And in the morning, they would sit at the kitchen table and pray and study the Bible. And in that movie, the grandfather read those beautiful verses to that little boy. By the grace of God, I am what I am. And that little boy had great athletic ability, and he would run alongside of the trains. And he could run faster and faster. And when he grew up, he was quite a good football player and won the Heisman Trophy. It was a beautiful story, especially that beginning. But we all have this. It doesn't matter what our background is, wherever we came from, what mistakes we have made, what sorrow we might have endured. By the grace of God, we are what we are. God's grace, God's amazing grace. So I'm so grateful for those readings, grateful for the beautiful music and testimonies, and to be with you all tonight.
Thank you.